Friends, we live in a time when change is no longer the exception. The storm we face is both literal and metaphorical. Shifts in technology, market forces, global supply chains, social norms, they all converge. And when they converge, what emerges is what people sometimes call a perfect storm. Disruption has always been misunderstood. It's not chaos for chaos's sake. It's the natural consequence of innovation colliding with complacency. Every great transformation begins when the old guard insists that world can't change, and the innovators quietly prove them wrong. When entire industries are forced to reimagine themselves, that's when progress accelerates. What many interpret as destruction is actually creation in motion. Disruption is the force that clears inefficiency, challenges the status quo, and releases trapped potential in the system. What's remarkable about disruption is its asymmetry. It doesn't arrive politely, asking permission. It rewrites the rules in real time. For those anchored in legacy systems, it feels threatening. For those positioned on the frontier, it feels exhilarating. Think about what happens when cost curves collapse in technology, when computing power, battery storage, or genomic sequencing becomes exponentially cheaper. Suddenly, barriers fall, access expands, and entirely new markets open. The cycle of fear and disbelief that follows isn't a sign of danger, it's a signal of opportunity. True opportunity lies not in resisting disruption, but in understanding its logic. Disruptive innovation follows predictable patterns. It starts in niches ignored by incumbents, scales quietly, and then overtakes the mainstream. The key is to recognize the inflection point before it becomes obvious. In the early stages, disruptive trends are dismissed as fads or too small to matter. Yet these are precisely the moments when vision matters most, when the data looks chaotic, and conviction must come from understanding exponential trajectories rather than linear progressions. The world's most transformative companies were born in times of uncertainty. They emerged when fear dominated the narrative, and established players doubled down on what used to work. The innovators saw what others couldn't, that disruption isn't an event, it's a process. It's the continual replacement of outdated assumptions with new truths. It requires courage to invest in the future before it feels comfortable, and discipline to stay the course when volatility tests conviction. But over time, that courage compounds. We are living through a period of accelerating convergence. Artificial intelligence, robotics, energy storage, DNA sequencing, and blockchain are not isolated technologies. They are interdependent platforms feeding one another's growth. Together, they represent the most powerful wave of creative destruction in modern history. The implications stretch far beyond technology. They reshape economics, labor markets, healthcare, and energy systems. The cost declines, efficiency gains, and productivity surges that follow this kind of convergence are not incremental. They're transformative. When disruption hits, value migrates. Capital flows toward agility, vision, and scalability. Those who cling to outdated models, mistaking stability for safety, experience erosion. Those who adapt and anticipate find that the storm clears a path. This isn't about guessing trends. It's about understanding the underlying innovation curve. The companies that will define the next decade are the ones aligning themselves with technological inevitability rather than historical inertia. Disruption also democratizes power. It challenges monopolies, redistributes access, and empowers individuals. Just as the internet decentralized information, new technologies are decentralizing finance, manufacturing, and energy. This shift creates immense volatility in the short term, but extraordinary resilience in the long term. The most disruptive ideas often face the greatest skepticism, but as adoption scales and cost curves decline, conviction transforms into consensus, and by then, the exponential rewards are already spoken for. To see disruption as opportunity is to adopt a different lens on uncertainty. It means interpreting volatility as a byproduct of progress, not a warning to retreat. It means recognizing that every downturn, every technological shock, every collapse of an old model is simultaneously the opening act of a new one. History shows that the future doesn't belong to those who defend the past. It belongs to those who build what comes next. And in that, disruption is not the enemy of stability. It's the architect of renewal. Preparation is not about predicting the future. It's about building the capacity to move with it. The most resilient minds, the most adaptive organizations, are not those who forecast perfectly. They are the ones who pivot quickly when the unexpected arrives. Change no longer moves linearly. It comes in exponential waves. The speed at which industries transform today demands more than traditional planning. It demands agility, courage, and vision. Those who wait for certainty will miss the inflection point entirely. Every major turning point begins with discomfort. The moment you realize that what worked yesterday no longer works today, you're being invited to evolve. Preparation in times like these is not about defending the old system. It's about understanding the signals that point to the new one. When markets shake, when models collapse, when data contradicts intuition, that's where opportunity hides. To pivot effectively, one must first let go of the illusion that stability equals safety. In truth, the greatest risk now lies in standing still. What we are witnessing globally is the acceleration of interconnected disruptions. Artificial intelligence is redefining productivity, renewable energy is shifting cost structures, digital finance is decentralizing power. These changes do not move in isolation. They compound, feeding each other's growth. Preparing for this new reality means identifying where these curves intersect and positioning ahead of convergence. It's not about reacting to headlines, it's about understanding trajectories. By the time disruption becomes obvious, it's already too late to lead. It's only time to follow. Pivoting requires humility and conviction in equal measure. Humility to admit when assumptions are outdated, conviction to act before the world agrees with you. The hardest part of transformation is psychological. Many cling to legacy frameworks because they feel comfortable, but comfort dulls adaptability. Leaders who thrive in transition cultivate a mindset of experimentation, testing, iterating, and learning from small failures rather than defending perfection. They build organizations that value discovery over predictability. The future rewards flexibility, not rigidity. Preparation also demands data-driven conviction. In times of uncertainty, intuition alone is not enough. The ability to interpret exponential data, declining cost curves, rising adoption rates, increasing efficiencies, separates reactive strategies from visionary ones. Preparation means understanding the structure beneath the surface noise. When others see volatility, disciplined thinkers see signal. When others retreat, they step forward. Knowing that volatility often marks the transition between eras, the art of pivoting lies in seeing possibilities where others see threats. It's not about abandoning a vision, it's about recalibrating the path to reach it. Every innovation cycle requires redirection. When technology shifts, consumer behavior follows, and then markets realign. Those who adapt their strategies early are not reacting. They're repositioning to capture what comes next. The ability to pivot isn't reactive weakness, it's strategic strength. It's what separates those who are disrupted from those who do the disrupting. Preparation isn't about predicting the next storm, but designing your sails for resilience. The world will always deliver surprises, geopolitical shocks, financial stress, technological leaps. But those surprises don't destroy systems that are flexible by design. They expose the fragility of systems built on denial. True preparation means embedding adaptability into every decision, ensuring that when conditions shift, your response isn't panic but progression. The future doesn't wait for slow movers. It rewards those who treat change as momentum. The ability to prepare and pivot is no longer optional, it's the foundation of long-term survival. It's how innovators stay ahead when markets reprice, when old certainties fade, when the winds shift unexpectedly. The question is never whether change will come, it's whether you'll be positioned to harness it. The greatest value is created in these transition moments, when clarity is scarce and conviction is rare. To prepare is to anticipate, to pivot is to evolve, and evolution is the only strategy that endures. We live in a world where everything is linked to technology, economics, energy, biology, and human behavior all moving together in an intricate dance of cause and effect. No system exists in isolation anymore, A shift in one domain ripples across others with breathtaking speed, creating feedback loops that amplify change. What once took decades to unfold can now happen in months. This interconnectedness is both our greatest strength and our greatest source of instability. It means that innovation compounds, but so does disruption. When one system reaches its tipping point, the effects cascade, transforming entire industries and societies in ways few anticipate. Consider how digitalization triggered a chain reaction. As information moved online, communication accelerated, data exploded, and artificial intelligence found fertile ground to evolve. That evolution didn't just change technology, it changed economics, politics, education, and even social psychology. Each system leaned into the next, creating exponential acceleration. We often underestimate how deeply linked these dynamics are because we're trained to think in silos. But in the new economy, the boundaries between fields dissolve. Innovation is no longer vertical, it's horizontal, converging across disciplines. The tipping points that emerge from these connections are not gradual, they are sudden and irreversible. They happen when years of incremental progress reach a threshold and trigger a rapid phase shift. Battery costs fall below a certain price, and suddenly electric vehicles become mainstream. Computing power scales exponentially, and artificial intelligence leaps from theory to application. DNA sequencing costs collapse, and precision medicine moves from concept to clinical reality. These moments feel disruptive, but they are the natural consequence of interconnected progress. Understanding these dynamics means thinking differently about risk and opportunity. Traditional models assume linear change, slow, predictable, and compartmentalized, but the real world now operates on networked feedback loops. A breakthrough in one domain can ignite transformation in another, multiplying effects beyond initial expectations. The leaders who grasp this don't wait for confirmation. They position ahead of the curve, knowing that convergence is destiny. They realize that the most powerful shifts are not isolated, they are synchronized. What makes tipping points so powerful is their invisibility until the very moment they arrive. For years, progress seems stagnant. Then suddenly, adoption explodes. It's the exponential curve hiding in plain sight. This pattern defines every major innovation cycle. Early on, progress feels slow and inconsequential. Skeptics dominate. Then, compounding forces converge, lower costs, improved efficiency, broader access, and social acceptance. Within a short window, what was once dismissed becomes inevitable. The world calls it disruption, but it's simply acceleration reaching critical mass. These moments redefine entire economies. When interconnected systems cross their tipping points together, the outcome isn't additive, it's multiplicative. Think of energy storage converging with renewables, or robotics with AI, or blockchain with financial inclusion. Each technology amplifies the other, pushing industries beyond traditional limits. This is the essence of exponential change, where advances don't just build, they reinforce. The result is a flywheel of innovation that's almost impossible to stop once it begins. But interconnectedness cuts both ways. It also means fragility. When systems are tightly bound, failure can propagate as easily as progress. A supply chain disruption can ripple through global trade. A cyber vulnerability can destabilize entire networks. The same feedback loops that drive exponential growth can also accelerate collapse if left unchecked. That's why understanding systemic interdependence is crucial. Managing complexity is no longer about containment, it's about adaptation. The systems that survive are those built with flexibility, redundancy, and transparency. The world's future will be determined by how we navigate these intersections, how we anticipate the tipping points that are now forming beneath the surface. The challenge isn't to predict which system will tip first, it's to understand that when one does, it will pull many others with it. Progress today doesn't happen in isolation, it happens through connection. And when those connections reach critical mass, the transformation is unstoppable. That is the moment the world changes, not incrementally but irreversibly. Leadership reveals its true form not in calm conditions but in chaos. When the winds rise and uncertainty dominates, when every headline screams volatility and every signal feels contradictory, That is, when leaders show whether their conviction is real or performative. It's easy to steer when the seas are calm, but when the storm hits, when markets reprice overnight, when technology disrupts the familiar, when systems shake from within, that's when leadership transcends management. It's no longer about control, it's about clarity, courage, and conviction in the face of fear. In moments like these, followers look not for perfection but for presence. The best leaders do not pretend to have all the answers, they communicate a framework for navigating the unknown. They anchor decisions in principles, not panic. They understand that volatility is not an enemy but a messenger. Every storm reveals what was fragile, inefficient, or outdated. True leadership listens to that message and acts decisively, transforming weakness into resilience. Leadership in turbulence begins with perspective. The instinctive response to crisis is to tighten control, to cling to certainty, but real leaders do the opposite. They zoom out. They look at the entire system, the long-term trajectory beneath the noise. They recognize that disruption is often a byproduct of transformation, that what appears chaotic on the surface is frequently a necessary rebalancing underneath. Instead of reacting emotionally, they interpret volatility through the lens of opportunity. That mindset, the ability to remain analytical when others are reactive, is the difference between surviving and shaping the future. Courage, in this sense, is not recklessness. It's conviction grounded in evidence. Great leaders invest when others retreat, innovate when others consolidate, and trust their thesis when short-term data conflicts with long-term logic. They see what most miss, that crisis compresses time. What might have taken a decade to evolve can unfold in a single year when systems are under stress. Leadership in such periods means anticipating acceleration, making decisions not for today's conditions but for tomorrow's reality. Communication becomes the anchor. In uncertainty, silence breeds fear. The leader's role is to replace speculation with vision, confusion with direction. Transparency doesn't mean weakness, it builds trust. When a team or organization senses that its leader sees clearly, even amid chaos, confidence follows. A clear narrative, rooted in data, driven by mission, becomes the stabilizing force that aligns collective energy. It's not about offering guarantees, it's about offering understanding. The paradox of leadership in the storm is that you must hold two opposing truths at once: unwavering belief in the long-term trajectory and complete flexibility in execution. Strategy must remain constant, tactics must evolve. Daily, leaders who can adapt without abandoning their mission create the kind of organizational agility that thrives under stress. They know that storms don't destroy strong structures, they expose weak ones. They use the moment to rebuild smarter, faster, stronger. Empathy also defines leadership. In crisis, the pressure of uncertainty weighs differently on every individual. Some see opportunity, others see loss. A leader must bridge that emotional gap, reminding people not only of where they're going but why they started. The ability to inspire amid fear is the mark of true influence. It's not about commanding compliance, it's about reigniting purpose. People follow vision, not orders, especially when the ground is shifting beneath them. When the winds finally calm, history remembers not who predicted the storm, but who navigated through it with integrity and foresight. The leaders who emerge stronger are those who refuse to let fear dictate their strategy. They didn't react, they recalibrated, they didn't hide, they stood visible and vocal, showing that conviction doesn't vanish when conditions worsen. Leadership in the eye of the storm isn't about waiting for stability, it's about creating it. The storm doesn't break them, it defines them.